Hi everyone, it's Agnieszka from 5 Minute Language. Welcome back to my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. So I haven't seen you guys for a while. I haven't actually filmed for a while because I was renovating my place and I didn't really have a good kind of background to film against. But that's done now and I'm back and I'm ready to share my language advice with you again. So I'm starting with a big video in which I'm going to share with you some language advice that I've never shared before. Are you ready? Let's get started. So my first piece of advice relates to beating stress and anxiety when speaking a foreign language. So this is something that comes up a lot. People are often afraid to speak because they feel anxious or nervous or shy. This feeling can actually arise from feeling like we're not important. So basically the technique I'm going to give you is going to make you feel more important or equal to other people. So it's a technique that I've used sometimes when public speaking, when speaking a foreign language, when being in a situation where I feel slightly anxious or nervous or shy or not very confident. So there are two ways in which you can use this technique. The first one is imagine you're an actor in a film or in the theatre and you're basically acting out a role, and the other person you're speaking to is also an actor. So all you're doing is you're having a conversation as two actors, and basically that kind of tricks you into thinking that you are equals because you are both actors. And obviously you are equals, but sometimes your mind might be telling you, I'm not as important, I'm not as good as the other person, and that's kind of why you become anxious. So try this technique. It's definitely worth giving it a go. Imagine you're just, in a theatre, in a film, and you're just acting out a role. And that's what you should focus on, that role that you have to play, the script that you have to say, rather than focusing on anything else. So the second part of this technique, or a slightly different way in which you can do it, is you can imagine that you're a celebrity and you're being interviewed. Somebody has just met you, they're asking you questions because you're a famous person, an expert in a field, or someone who's just a celebrity. So that will again give you this kind of sense of importance because somebody is talking to you precisely because you're famous, you're interesting, and they're interested in what you've got to say. And that's the reality even if you're not a celebrity. People want to talk to you because they want to know what you've got to say. They're interested in it, and often we forget it. Especially when we speak foreign languages, we kind of tell ourselves that somebody who's talking to us is there to correct our mistakes or to judge us, but that's not the case. The reason they're there is because they're interested, because you are interesting. So if you imagine you're a celebrity or an expert or someone who's well known, you will kind of maybe get into that kind of mindset of knowing that the other person is there to listen to you rather than to judge you. Okay, my second tip that I've never shared before is to do with mnemonics. I'm sure you've actually heard me before speak about mnemonics. It's a technique that I've often referred to, especially in relation to learning vocabulary. But what I want to cover today is using mnemonics and making associations with your native language. So generally, it's not something I recommend. I generally recommend that you should forget your native language and think in the language you're learning. And I've got a video about that, so make sure you check it out. But if that's something that doesn't work for you, if you like that association with your native language, or if you'd rather learn vocabulary by associating it with your native language, then that's a technique that can help you. So when using mnemonics, essentially you're asking yourself, what does this word sound like? Does it sound like something else in my native language? So an example I always give to people is the French word gare, which means train station. In Polish, the word gar is a massive pot. It's like a pot in which you cook soup, for example. So you can kind of imagine that you're walking into a train station and there is a massive pot of soup that they're giving out to passengers before they board the train. And so you create that kind of mental image, mental association between your native language, which is, for example, Polish, gar, and the way that the word that you're trying to learn in French sounds. It sounds like the Polish word gar. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope it does. If not, make sure you check out my video on mnemonics and using this technique for language learning, and then maybe come back to this one. So my third tip, which I have never shared before, is reading backwards. So I have personally worked in various editorial roles during my career, and this is something that I learned from somebody who used to be a journalist. It's a technique for proofreading, so making sure that there are no mistakes in what you've written. So you do it by basically reading backwards, and you can read backwards word by word or sentence by sentence. So let me give you an example. You've got a sentence that says, I'm going to school. If you're reading it backwards, you would be reading school to going I'm. Okay, so you focus on individual words rather than focusing on the meaning of the sentence, because you don't want the meaning to distract you from spotting mistakes in your sentence. Does that make sense? Okay, so the technique I'm recommending here for language learning is not reading backwards word by word, but reading backwards sentence by sentence. So when you're doing traditional reading and you're reading a paragraph of text, you read from the beginning to the end, you read all the sentences, and basically you read it to get the meaning of the paragraph. But sometimes it's useful to just focus on language and language structures, so the meaning can kind of slightly distract you from that. So when you use this technique, you can read backwards sentence by sentence. So it's read the last sentence first and then move on to the second last sentence, and so on until you get to the first sentence in the piece of text you're reading. So that will help you basically detach yourself from the meaning and really focus on the language structures that are included in your text. So the final technique I'm going to give you is a technique for improving your listening skills. So for this, you will need a video and subtitles in the language that you're learning. So first you're going to watch the video. You're just going to watch it with the subtitles on. Then you're going to watch it again, but this time you're only going to be listening to the video. You are then going to watch it again, and this time you're going to be reading the subtitles, just focusing on reading the subtitles. Then you're going to watch again and listen and read the subtitles at the same time to help you associate what you're hearing with what you're reading. And then finally, you're going to listen and repeat. So you're going to play the video again and you're going to repeat what they're saying. So this technique is basically made up of different stages during which you're concentrating on a different aspect of learning, which is really useful because you have an intention for each of these little exercises. When you're just listening to something or just reading something and you have no intention, it's more difficult to learn because you don't really know what you're aiming for. So in this exercise, you've got an intention for every little piece of the exercise, just for reading, just for listening and repeating, and so on. Okay, so I hope these little tips have helped you, and I hope this video is good enough to encourage you to subscribe to my channel and keep watching my videos. I really appreciate it. So I'll see you next time. Bye!